something a little bit different today. This is for you if you like creative storytelling, whether you're a chosen fan or not. If you enjoy filmmaking, want to come behind the scenes and also explore biblical truth, then this is for you. By the way, I'm Sarah Holloway and I love creative storytelling. I love to communicate God's heart and helping you to be the difference for such a time as this. So, we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into The Chosen Last Supper, season 5. Now, I had the privilege of going to the VIP screening as well as watching it at the cinema. So, I've seen the entire season and several episodes more than once. So, I've been really thinking about some of what I saw and how it really has been cleverly crafted to give you a greater understanding of biblical truth and some things that maybe you haven't spotted, such as why the disciples are seated where they are. Why is John and Judas on either side of Jesus's side? Jesus, yeah, you know what I mean. And how does that relate to the fig tree scene? You know, it's intentional. Yes, it's not random. Intentional. A bit like that song. If you know what I mean, put it in the comments below. So, John and Judas were seated either side of Jesus. Now, I don't want to give you loads of spoilers, but if you haven't seen it, I do encourage you go watch it. But it's all in the Bible. But the way in which it's told has been very cleverly crafted to help you to identify a few different things. And something that I noticed was eyes open, eyes shut, eyes towards the kingdom, eyes towards the world. There are two different kingdoms, and we see very clearly that Judas and John, not only in their positioning in their seats, but also in what happens in the rest of the episodes, how you can see what's going on in their thoughts, in their intentions of their heart. Really, they are on two sides of the kingdom. I'm going to show you a clip a little bit later on that will show you this so clearly of what is going on in Judas's heart. Now, he expected to have this kingdom conquering warrior coming in, that Jesus would come in and overthrow the Roman Empire, would just move out everything, every mountain from in front of them, so that Jesus could be crowned rightful king of the Jews. Whereas John started to recognize that actually his kingdom was not of this earth. No, it was a kingdom of heaven. And you can see throughout the series that John's understanding, the eyes of his heart, his are being opened, whereas Judas's eyes are closed. Now, if we see in the Bible, it talks about John in a way where he knows how much he was loved. We can see that even after Jesus was resurrected, which is not yet in the chosen, by the way, but I just want to highlight something that it says, so she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, they've taken my Lord out of the tomb. And we know that the other disciple, the one who Jesus loved, is John talking about himself, because otherwise he would have probably named who the other disciple was. But I think it's because not that John was loved any more than any other disciple, but he knew he was loved. And so, do you know that you are loved? I don't think Judas knew how much he was loved. But we can see that John's eyes were open, just as like he was one of the first to see and to understand and perceive when Jesus was raised from the dead. I think that now, during this, we're starting to see in the Last Supper that this is what's happening. His eyes and the eyes of his heart are being enlightened, they're being opened. He's starting to see things as they really are. And there's so much that we can read from John. We can even see that in 1 John 2, verse 15, it says, again, written by John, and I think he had this understanding: do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. Wow, what a challenge. Anyone who loves the world The love for the Father is not in them. And I think we saw very clearly that Judas, he didn't seem, or certainly the way in which he's portrayed through The Chosen, as a bad person. But yet his heart, we start to see, was actually far from God.
I suppose I have not seen enough.
And because it did not align with the intentions that Jesus had. And yet John's heart was starting to align much more with kingdom purpose and with God's purpose. And I think we're at this time where we're being challenged with our own hearts, with our own motives. What is it that draws us, that pulls us? We see so much fame and fortune and celebrityism and all these things, the things of the world that people want. We can all get drawn to some of these things, but knowing that that's not what we can take with us. We can't take these things of the world into eternity. And I believe that, John started to see that Jesus' intention is for eternity, for us to know him and to be able to have that, be part of that heavenly kingdom and not just an earthly one. And we start to see, I think, in The Chosen, this very clear divide. And I think that is why the director of The Chosen has placed Judas and John on either side of Jesus at the Last Supper, which reminds me very much of two other people that were either side of Jesus on the cross, the thieves, the one that said, "Take yourself off there if you are the Son of God," and the other who said, "Remember me when you enter your kingdom." And Jesus said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." In that moment, he saw his heart. For me, that is so powerful. We can see things on the outside. We can judge people or think that we look good on the outside. And yet it is the heart, the motives of the heart that Jesus is looking at. And in fact, I had the privilege of directing one of the Wintershall passion plays before lockdown, and I actually put in an extra little scene between Mary and Jesus, the mother of Jesus, and talking about when he first went to Jerusalem. The very first time that Jesus went to Jerusalem was when he was a baby, when he was dedicated, and he went into the temple. And it says in Luke 2, verses 34 to 35, it talks about Simeon blessing the child, baby Jesus, and saying to his mother, Mary, "This child is destined to cause the fall and rise of many in Israel and to be a sign that will be spoken against, so that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed." So that the thoughts, the intentions of many hearts will be revealed. And we see on the cross, the name of Jesus, the person of Jesus revealed the heart of the two robbers. And we're seeing it throughout the Chosen series 5. I think it's a really great way of visually seeing and being immersed in this historical story of having these two opposing apostles, or should I say disciples. Judas obviously did not become an apostle, but these two disciples of Jesus who were very close to Jesus, both of them, and yet had eyes open and eyes closed. One very much focused on the things of the kingdom of heaven, and one on this world and the things of this earth. And it links, did you know, with the parable of the fig tree. Did you wonder why? I used to wonder why on earth, in the middle of, Jesus coming in and going into the temple, going into Jerusalem, should I say, and then going to the fig tree and then coming back and going into the temple. Actually, it's so relevant. And right in that moment, we start to see it unpacking, because you see Jesus going into Jerusalem, and whereas John recognized that he was on a donkey, he was on a colt, he wasn't on this conquering war horse that Judas expected him to be on, but he came as a humble servant. And then he goes out and looks for something to eat and sees the fig tree, and curses the fig tree because it's full of leaves, but it has no fruit. Now, apparently, fig trees, when they're full of leaves, is kind of preempting, saying that there should be fruit there, even though it was not the season for the fruit. The leaves were there, which suggested that there should be fruit, but there wasn't. And that's a bit like our lives. They were talking about Israel because Israel actually is often represented, a lot of the countries are represented in the Bible as trees, and Israel as the fig tree. So it's very much insinuating that Israel, and certainly we know the religious rulers of the time, were not recognizing Jesus. They were not living the life. And how do we know that? Because Jesus went straight back in and he went and he demolished the tables in the temple. He overthrew the money changers. Yes, that's the one. Money changers, and all of, the doves and the sheep and the everything that was being sold in the temple for profit, for personal gain. And it was supposed to be a place of prayer and dedication to God. And it's a good challenge, I think, to all of us, to our own hearts and to the church, and to look at, have we got green leaves looking as if it looks perfect on the outside, yet inside, like Jesus said about the Pharisees, we can be like whitewashed tombs that actually dead on the inside, cold, and maybe not bearing the fruit that the Bible talks about that we should be bearing. We also see this powerful scene where Jesus is in the center. You've got Judas and John either side of him, and he takes the bread and he breaks it and says, "This is my body." And it's like we see this rendering, this separation of the either side of these opposing kingdoms that are there, the representation of the kingdom of this world, the kingdom of darkness, and the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. Powerful filmmaking. There's so much more that you could unpack, but I hope that this is helping you to consider what God is speaking to you through this TV series. And I've got a great other TV series coming up for you, so watch the next video too. So before I play you that little clip that I promised, I do want to say that I love Jonathan Roumie's portrayal of Jesus and the way the script's written, that he is demonstrating, I think, from the scene of Lazarus in season 4, how he was in a different space to the disciples, that he was aware of what was coming. There was this foretelling of what we're going to see. And the disciples are kind of playing catch up, I think, in season 5. They're starting to recognize that there's something happening. And I think it's very much in line with the time that we live in. We are in this transition, in this season of a shift. Now, if you want to know more, you're interested in that, you can go grab yourself a copy of my book, wherever it is. Discern the Time. I'll put a link below. But it's interesting that even though Judas and John were sitting very close to Jesus, we only got that John saw himself as loved, the disciple that Jesus loved. He knew he was loved. But Judas was sitting in very close proximity to Jesus, and yet he didn't know him. He didn't know him. Are you sitting close to Jesus? Do you know him? And do you know that you're loved? Which side are you sitting on? And which do you relate to? Perhaps, it is a time to just realign, reflect, and consider the motives of your own heart. What kingdom are you looking at? The kingdom of heaven, or what you can gain in this world? Because we certainly can't take it with us. Anyway, I'll leave you with that clip. Let me know in the comments where you sit and anything else that perhaps you noticed in season 5, if you've seen it, or if you want to go see it, let me know. Let's keep the conversation going, and I'll catch you next time behind the scenes.
Look, I trust you. Do you trust me?
What sort of question is that?
You believe I have something to offer this group? Yes?
I do.
Then why won't you take my advice? Am I not here to help you?
I've never asked you for your advice.
Then what am I here for? If I am no use to your kingdom, then I am nothing.
You have a choice to make, Judas.
I'm listening.
who you belong to, who has your heart.